as you know, Arizona is home to a lot of public land between the land that Department of Interior administers directly and then that it holds in trust or administers for the tribes. That's about half of the state right there. When you take into account federal, state, and tribal land, that's about 85% of Arizona. So we've only got about 15% in private hands, and that means that decisions made by the federal government, including the Department of Interior, have a real outsized impact on the state. And we talked about a lot of the issues, and thank you for coming to my office. And I know you committed to me, and it sounds like everybody else, to visit their state in the early stages, so you will have a busy travel schedule. We mentioned, I know it was brought up a little bit in terms of the drought and the Colorado River, and the basin states are very close to an agreement on a drought contingency plan to leave additional water behind the dam at Lake Mead so that we don't hit that troubled the stage where there are arbitrary cuts that would hurt us badly. It's crucial for Arizona, obviously, that we work with the Department of Interior to ensure that Arizona water users, to the extent they leave water behind the dam, that water doesn't disappear down some canal in some other state. That's the only basis on which some contingency plan would work. Will you commit to continue to work with us in that regard? We got assurance last year from the Department of Interior. That assurance will have to go forward until there is a drought contingency plan.
I will commit to work on it, as I do. As earlier discussed, I do recognize that water, particularly in the West, is a big issue in every state in the West. And we got to get together and figure this out. And I think some of it is infrastructure. That's planned on what our requirements are going to be. And that's make sure we have the infrastructure to reach those requirements. And it's going to be probably a trifold. Some of it's going to be efficiency. Some of it's going to be building better capture facilities. And then look at the infrastructure we have. We're wasting a lot of water. There's no question of that. So let's make sure that every drop is precious, and let's make sure that our water is clean. I think we can do that.
Still on the subject of water, or Indian water settlements, last year I introduced the Hualapai Tribe Water Rights Settlement Act. Last week I introduced the bill to make necessary clarifications to the White Mountain Apache Tribe settlement. I know that you were a sponsor of the Blackfeet Water Rights Settlement Act, so you understand the importance of these settlements for both tribal and non-tribal users. Can we count on you to work with me and with the tribes and other parties in Arizona to make sure the Hualapai settlement moves forward, and also that we get the necessary clarifications to the White Mountain Apache Tribe settlement?
I do. I'd like to also thank Senator Daines for his work on the Blackfeet Water Compact. I view water compacts as a treaty obligation, and I think we need to uphold our part of that treaty obligation. The water compacts, as you know, are difficult. They involve the state, the tribes, and the federal government, and then within the federal government, it's not easy. But I do recognize the importance of working with you on the compacts, and also the importance of getting them resolved. They are a liability that's out there. We need to recognize they are a liability. They're not an earmark. It's a treaty obligation, and let's work together to get them done.
Thank you. As you know, cattle ranching has a long history in Arizona, continues to hold a prominent place in our present-day state as well as our history. I come from a ranching family. In fact, this last weekend I was back on the F-Bar where I was raised near Snowflake. Ranching is never an easy business, but it's made more difficult with issues like was already raised with the burros in northwestern Arizona and the Mexican gray wolf in southeastern Arizona. What we continue to hear is a lack of cooperation and coordination between the federal agencies and the local land users. I know that you've already committed to work on this. You'll be hearing a lot when you come to Arizona, the issues that we have with wild burros as well as the Mexican gray wolf issues.
And I am concerned, quite frankly, about the optic of whether it's BLM or the Forest Service. I grew up where Smokey the Bear was revered. I mean, who could not like Smokey the Bear? And now in some parts of our great nation, it's feared. When they see Smokey the Bear, they think of law enforcement rather than managing our forests. So I'm very concerned about that because it has implications of the next generation. So we have to come together and make sure that the management, our team out there is viewed as helpful, as viewed as land managers, and not to be feared. You want to stop by and say hello. You don't want to avoid. But in some places, and the further you get out, in parts of Alaska and parts of Montana, they're viewed as law enforcement and obstructionists. And I think we need to be really careful as leaders of this great nation to recognize it and go forward with solutions to make sure the next generation looks at law enforcement, be it BLM or Fish and Game, as good neighbors and helpful rather than to be feared.
Thank you.